Guten Morgen. Peak performance is what most leaders are striving for. Every startup founder is concentrating fully on their business success in the beginning, but does it work out on a long term? Is coaching necessary for these people to see the bigger picture in the timeline of 40, 50 years? We have somebody on our show today who is very, very qualified to answer all these questions. She was in the VC scene, having her own startup, handling hundreds of millions, and landed now in a certified coaching space where she is one of the go-to coaches in Asia for startups, for leaders, for managers of huge companies. So we will get answers from her what these people are lacking, what their strengths are, and how the health is playing a role on a long term. Looking very much forward to it. And now, get into the podcast. Welcome to the Pura Vida podcast. My name is Dr. Gabriel Salgo, and I'm your host. Thank you very much for coming, Becky Cox.
Yeah, thanks.
Certified coach for entrepreneurs, managers, leaders, but that is just your newest venture.
Yeah.
It's what makes it very, very interesting for I think also your clients and also for me, that you didn't have a straightforward path to the coaching. But you have live experience as a musician, as an entrepreneur, as a venture capitalist. So I'm looking very much forward to get into what entrepreneurs type of problems, mindset-wise, because I'm seeing them when they're older, trying to fix their health problems.
Yeah.
So I know the mindset when they're arriving in their 60s, 70s, but you handle them in the beginning. And I would be very interested into what leads to the problems that they're having, which are preventable. And I see very often that they work their whole life. They have an incredible work ethic and a tiny health renaissance and knowledge. And even to take care of themselves is very often a problem. So maybe we jump into that. How did you even came to coaching? I know that you lived in Mexico. You are originally from Canada and ended up in beautiful Kuala Lumpur.
Yes.
So how did that work out?
So those little
Steps,
right?
Yeah.
I like to start with explaining what kind of environment I grew up in, because that's
always helpful.
that's the foundation from where I sprung, right? So my parents were extremely entrepreneurial. My mother, but she's even still working close to 70. She's always been able to sell anything. Before she got married, she was selling like funeral plots and used cars. During my teenage years, she had a fashion brand. Now she has a hotel and she does events. So she's always been, able to spot opportunities and just always put herself out there. My dad, on the other hand, it's entrepreneurial in a different sense. So he is a math and philosophy dropout from college, but still very passionate about math, about engineering, about logic. So he was able to lead a family business that is in the automotive and the engineering industry that started in my native Toronto and expanded into Mexico. So raised me in an environment saying, I didn't have to study to be a lawyer or a doctor or do the practical thing and get a job that actually pays good money.
That's very helpful. That's very, very helpful.
But at the same time, they always said, whatever you want to do in life, you do it. And you just put your full mind to it.
But I think these are the most successful people where there's no pressure from the parents in certain directions.
Yeah.
There is leadership. There is maybe support,
Yes.
but not a pressure. You have to be there.
Yes.
And that's something I find here in Asia not very prevalent.
Yes.
So I see my son is already planning. He's almost 13 in 2 weeks, but already planning. So when he's finishing school, he goes for a year, travels the world and tries to convince his friends. And I see that especially Chinese parents are like, a year? No. Maybe you can do that after university.
Yes.
And they know exactly that after university, you won't travel the world because you are already on the market for a job.
Yes.
So I find it very, very refreshing
Yes.
to hear that, okay, parents didn't pressure you into anything, but led you and had an idea or role.
A Vorbild.
Vorbild, exactly. In German is much better than you said. Vorbild
Yeah.
role. I think they even use it in the US now. Vorbild,
I think
Fahrvergnügen,
so.
yeah.
A lot of German things are coming.
Kaputt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Vorbild role.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, very important for the younger generation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just an idea of experimentation, right? That you can only really figure out what you really want to do and what you're good at by trying things out, not being afraid, trusting, and you will eventually get there. You're not going to figure it out on the first try, right? So when I guess as I went through, transitioning, living on 3 different continents, making these 5 different career transitions, I think I was guided by 3 principles, right? One is just, I guess, and I learned it from my upbringing, is courage, right? To just say, hey, I really do not like this, and I'm just going to drop it and move on. So that's one thing. It's really being decisive. But the other is hard work, right? I mean, you can't get away from it. And I like to say that when all else fails, hard work really will get you far.
Definitely.
Right? So when I transitioned, for example, I was playing piano from a very young age, right? So you learn how to sit in front of a set of keys for 7-8 hours a day by the time I was performance
It's
level.
really long, yeah.
Yeah, if you have to do that, you can figure it out anywhere, right? So when my husband and I moved to Malaysia, and that for those in the audience who don't know what venture building is, he came here to set up businesses, be also the first person to inject capital,
Right.
and set up the team, and then move on and serially start new ventures, right? In the digital startup space. When he did that, and I decided I was curious and I wanted to give it a go, you just have to put your head down and work really hard. And what I really loved about the startup space is it's very inviting because everything is new, right? Nobody really knows what they're doing, frankly. At least you could say that 10 years ago, everybody was kind of new and you have to learn on the fly. So as long as you have grit and resilience and you have a head on your shoulders, you'll be fine, right?
I think that's still true for startups. I mean, the people come with ideas, they have hopes, and they just do it.
Yes.
And the VC then comes in and he has the experience on how to guide them maybe. But again, that happens only in the financial sense or in the growing sense, but not on a personal, on the mindset, on the psychological, on the health sense.
Yeah.
The VC doesn't care about that.
Well, I would say if you asked me 10 years ago, that's definitely the case. I think nowadays the times are changing, right? Like, there's an economic downturn. There's still like long-term effects in COVID on supply chains, on venture capital investing. And so they're changing their focus a little bit from really growing fast and expensive and dominating a market really fast and pushing founders to do that to, okay, how can you be profitable early on? How can you control costs? How can you start building longer term strategies, really building up the team and the resilience, right?
But that comes from a startup founders? Or does it come from somebody who is already grooming them?
VCs nowadays are starting to do that. So there's a lot of funds in Europe and in the US that even dedicate, I think it's 1% of all the capital that they invest to helping them with coaches, mental health. It's very new. Yeah, it's very new. I don't think they've done it out here just yet.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Even in Europe, I haven't heard of the concept of, okay, let's dedicate them, let's coach them, let's invest into the person.
Yes.
Not into the venture, but really into the founders, the person personally, so that he can be aboard for a longest time.
Yeah.
And not just get it off the ground, get a manager, get a experienced CEO, and get these guys out, you get a payout, and you start something new.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a very good idea.
It is a good idea. But again, it's very nascent.
So you come to your coaching at that point. So what is the age group that you mostly see?
So I'm working usually with people between anywhere from 24, 25 to, I would say, around late 40s. Yeah.
And that's very interesting because I start to work exactly after that.
Ah, I see.
So I never see these young ones
Yeah,
because they are exactly, everybody is healthy or hopefully healthy, obviously, and thinks about everything else. Then I'm 60. I want to enjoy what I built, but I can't get out of my Ferrari because I have a hip problem. I have a back. I don't have enough muscles to get out.
Yeah.
So these are the very, very simple things
Yes.
that these people completely forget. So in your experience, do they have a life plan or do they have just a business plan?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say that they're, depending on age, right? You're going like age. I would say the people that are coming in that are younger are coming on in a lot more aware than the people that are older, right? It's actually really surprising that people in their younger, their 20s are actually approaching me for coaching, right? It's something that, the older folks would only think of in their late 30s or 40s, right? So I think they're generally more conscious. However, there is still this predisposition and this, I would say, maybe almost inappropriate levels of energy that 20-year-old has that needs to be directed somewhere, and they can't help it. They just go overboard with work. That definitely happens. Yeah.
And do they come on their own or are they guided or recommended by somebody?
They are usually coming, in my experience, of their own accord.
That's
All of them.
extremely interesting.
Yes.
That's very, very interesting.
However, I think it's because they are looking for performance. So they're
Enhancement.
Growth.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to differentiate. So the people I work with, they're all either entrepreneurs or leaders, right? But I like to differentiate them into two buckets. One is they're the early stage founders. They're the scrappy, starting out with the ideas, experimenting, launching products to market. It's all brand new, getting their first stages of funding. So they're in early stage environments. They are financial resources are very low, right? And they're doing everything. Right? They're doing a bit of everything. They don't have the team. And they don't have the experience to do absolutely all those roles. So they're in an environment of so many unknowns, right? It could be that they run out of money in a month, in a week, the next day. They don't even know sometimes. It's an incredible amount of pressure coming from the unknown. Or later stage startup companies. They're mature organizations. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily financially stable, but they are. There's a bit more stability, and they have a little bit more of a focused role, right? They have a specific expertise, right? So their stresses are different. They're looking at company politics. They're looking at, okay, I'm a leader. I came here as an operator, and then I became a very directive style of leader. Okay, how do I start moving into a realm of collaborating? How do I start thinking about coordinating people, empowering people? So there's a saying by the CEO of American Express that says, and I think he's referring to leaders and later stage companies, that you're holding on to two things. You're holding on to hope, the future, and you're creating reality at the same time. So this is a later stage kind of problem, right? But they do have some common threads, right? One is that both of them are in complex environments. Either you don't know what's happening or there's a lot of red tape in company politics. In both cases, you need to be creative. You need to be in a state of mind where you can creative and come up with solutions and, flip a switch. The other is they're not prioritizing themselves. They are never prioritizing themselves. Even though they're coming to me, they want to grow the company. They want to hit a target. They want to build a team. It's always about something outside of them, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the work we do is actually okay, let's not think about your company, but let's think of a company of Gabriel Inc., right? What are the parts of your life that make you who you are, right? What is your mission and vision? Where are you heading? And treating yourself like a company. It's kind of
so going more into the personal.
Yes, the person before anything else.
Correct.
Right? Even if you're talking about relationships or anything, you start with you first. And that's a lot of the work I do. And a lot of the transition to thinking of yourself first is a lot of time is spent there.
That's my feeling looking at the US at the moment, especially, of course, movies. You see them all. It's all about gender, racial, equity, all these things. Whereas Asia is more, if you are wealthy, and as you said, somebody who is wealthy, who is powerful, is respected. So you want to come to that.
Yeah, so there is a disconnect.
Or the survey is older.
That's a good point. But I think that even though the U.S. is looking more towards, I guess, equality, diversity, more on the left wing kind of side of things socially, it's still done with a tinge of their capitalist society, right? Which is obviously here as well, but they're thinking more short-term over long-term. They're more indulgent rather than restrained. They want it now. They want to open their phone. They want food now, whenever they feel like it, right? And that kind of consumer businesses in the U.S. are booming, and they've always been like that. Over here, they are as well, but it's a different tinge. It's more, the cultural and religious background in the East has more of a sense of well-being. Right? There's more of a sense of acceptance as things are, right? I thought it was actually interesting that Malaysians have a higher sense of risk than Germans, who are more conservative. But I see that in the whole context of all the different cultural dimensions, as they see that things don't work here. They accept them as they are. This is how it is. You just have to
comply. That's correct.
Yeah.
Whereas I see the risk taking in business is much higher here.
Mm-hmm.
People are more entrepreneurial than in Germany, where safety, and you can see it on insurances.
Yeah.
Insurance in Germany is you have to have at least 10 insurances, otherwise you're not covered. And I just had a gentleman who is running the largest Allianz insurance agency in Asia, and he's saying, so we tried this and this and this and this, which works perfect in Germany. We couldn't sell one.
Here
People are like, what do I need that for? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Well, it's also there's a sense of spending, right? It's spending in Malaysia. Consumers are extremely nitpicky, right, where they spend their money, right?
That plays a role also, I think, again, in healthcare, in their mindset of approaching, how do I build my business? Without the really foresight of the 50, 60, 70 years, where finally I think that the German entrepreneur is looking into that.
I don't have numbers on that, but yes,
yeah, that would be interesting to see the numbers.
I mean, culturally, a German is already buying their first insurance in their 20s, right?
Late.
Yeah. I feel like, well, at least the people that I know, and here that's not something you do.
No,
right?
Never do that.
So I feel like also with Asian clients, and it's good to know this cultural societal impact so that you can make changes according to what serves you. If you need to start working on your health, and this is a tendency that you have based on where you are growing up, it's important that you notice it and choose differently, right? So in Asia, they might even, because of the collectivist mindset, say, oh, I don't want to disturb the peace. I don't want to make a fuss about my health. I'll just kind of keep quiet about it and I'll deal with it later on my own when it's already a problem.
Very human thing to do. A human thing to do, because as long as it doesn't hurt, it's not there.
Yeah.
And there the mindset is changing, and their COVID was at least in one aspect positive, because people realized my health is important.
Yes.
And I can do prevention. If I'm more fit, I'm less perceptive for the virus's long-term effects or immediate effect by, hey, if you are sicker, you're more likely to die. So that's something that I see worldwide. Where I see differences is the responsibility in Germany or in Europe altogether, because of the insurances. People are very concerned about who is paying. So a German would come to the doctor and is my insurance paying for that? I have never heard this question in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asked me the question, so is my insurance paying for it? although the level of patients I'm having it doesn't have any money issues neither in Germany nor here. So they can both afford without insurance. But it's still, is the insurance paying? Because I already invested in the insurance. So insurance should pay for it.
If it's not, maybe it's okay. I can skip it.
No, then I don't know if that money is worth it.
Yeah.
Because I'm still not feeling bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's actually a core problem, right? Is that we associate pain with being bad and that comfort is good.
Correct.
So as long as we are comfortable and we have everything we need, then we don't even have to think about it.
Yes.
Right? Whereas, if you are deciding to make a big transition, if you are, you're passionate about something, you want to hit an ambitious goal, personal goal, you are going to be coming over challenge.
Yes.
You're going to be overcoming stress and all these things are going to be constantly coming at you. But people might see that first and want to back off and not want to go that way. But then they're also at the same time not finding meaning in life, right? They're staying comfortable, and then all of a sudden when all the challenges hit them, it's already too late, right? So I think a lot of my work and what I do is I like to guide people to start thinking that the negative is not necessarily bad.
Right? That's a very good point.
Yeah.
It's a very good point because I find that there is a toxic positivity that is coming on social media with, oh, you think of this, you just need to wake up in the morning, say 10 times, I'm feeling good, and you're good. You're not. And if you're not good, then you have to say 20 times. And everybody smiles on social media and they are always happy. There is not one problem they're having, which is a lie, which is completely a lie. I don't believe one person who says that. And that is health-wise a very, very dangerous thing because the mental health influences your physiological health and vice versa. If you have pain, you won't be able to perform or be happy in the level that you are without pain. And being depressed will have problems coming on your internal organs, on your hormonal system. So I think in your article was mentioning so that people who are constantly under stress, and as you said, this power stress, you are constantly having elevated levels of cortisol. They're not completely out of range, and they're becoming to the ideal or optimal one. So if you measure it at the doctors, it's like, yeah, you're not sick, you're not failing, your organs are okay, they're producing maybe a little bit more than it was 2 years ago, but they are within the range. But it already has an effect on your other organs, for example, on your thyroid, and the thyroid is then producing less thyroid hormone. With that, you are mentally, weight-wise, heart, the thyroid affects practically all organs in your body. So this deteriorates again, not to the level that you are sick, it's just not on the level where you want your performance to be. And I think that is very, very little people knowing about this.
Yeah.
And don't see the long-term effect on that.
Yeah.
And if they would understand, would have a knowledge, and that's why Insight Tracker is an interesting tool, because if it's explained, and that's not good. This is something maybe I should look more into it. How can I change? And then you need a coach or you need a healthcare professional who is guiding you, saying, so look, these are for you optimal levels. What can we do? Maybe you need something to calm you down. Can be herbal, can be meditative, can be other apps, can be bioreflective variables, etc. So there are so many options now, and that's again something that your healthcare professional should guide you in, because of the many options, you have to choose one and stick to it.
And it's so hard to navigate, right? Like there's so much information out there and we don't know like what is fact checked, what isn't. So it's really important to go with a professional and just have a conversation, and if possible, I would say a constant conversation. Being a coach, I'm very biased towards having a consistent engagement with what is happening in your life and maybe mirroring that back with someone. And I think this applies to healthcare as well.
I think that's very much in line with what I experienced from the healthcare side. If you are not taking care of the patient on long term, and the patient is not, as you said, in charge and knowledgeable about what he or she is doing, then you're losing the moment, the drive to go through with it.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say that is the foundation to any
Consistency.
Yes. Consistency, curiosity, right? And just staying with it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was really, I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, same.
Legal disclaimer. This podcast and website reflect the opinions of Dr. Gabriel Peter Salgo and his guests. The content provided here is not intended as medical advice and is solely for informational purposes. Given the unique nature of individuals, it is advisable to consult a healthcare professional for any medical concerns. The views expressed herein are our own and do not necessarily reflect those of our respective workplaces. While we strive for accuracy in the information shared, we welcome feedback and corrections. Privacy is paramount to us, and any references to individuals, locations, or scenarios have been altered to safeguard patient confidentiality. This podcast and website should not be construed in a legal capacity, including establishing a standard of care or as the basis for expert witness testimony. We do not guarantee the accuracy of statements or opinions expressed herein. Engagement with our content, whether through listening, reading, emailing, or social media interaction, does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Should any errors be identified in our content, please contact us through the provided channels. Ownership of this podcast belongs to Pura Vida Healthline SDN BHD. Our content may include affiliate links, through which we earn a commission on sales made through those links. As a participant in the Amazon affiliate program, we may earn from qualifying purchases made through our links. Disclosures. Dr. Gabriel Peter Salgo is the co-founder of Pura Vida Healthline SDN BHD. Dr. Gabriel Peter Salgo is a scientific advisor, board member, and/or investor to Mulligan H. Jada Kind Ltd., Eichsen Research, and receives compensation from these companies.